In fact, we call this term polypharmacy. It gets to a point where they take so many medications that we don't even know what the interactions are going to cause. We don't know what side effects. So many of these people are actually suffering. They're debilitating. Their debility is even decreasing because of the medications they're on, because of the treatments they're receiving, because of all this mixture going on. But they're really suffering the most because they've not been educated into how to stay well, how to prevent disease, how to enjoy life without being in bondage to medication, to physicians, to the medical establishment. So what it really comes down to is that disease is profitable. In fact, if you were to look at the top 4 diseases that Americans suffer from today, and you looked at the total amount of revenue that's generated by these, it gets close to $800 billion per year. $800 billion. Imagine if all of that was put over into wellness education. We need to ask ourselves, are we even treating our patients correctly? Are we promoting health, or are we confining them indoors, shut away from fresh air and sunlight and the enjoyment of nature, bringing about a further state of debility just by keeping them indoors? And are hospitals even healthy to begin with? I mean, think of the concept. We're putting most of our resources into hospital-type environments. So most of the people that get sick in this not-so-ideal system are going to the hospital. And so if you're a person that has cancer, let's say, would you want to be in a room right next to someone who has the Ebola virus, or AIDS, or HIV, hepatitis, any of these things? Ideally, no. Ideally, you would want to be somewhere away from other people that are sick, that have viruses, that have bacteria, that have fungal infections. You want to be away from them. Now, what happens is when we coop up all of our ill in the same place, we have things happening, this transmission of disease going on. It's actually referred to as nosocomial infections. Now, in terms of nosocomial infection deaths per year, we have something like 80,000 deaths per year due to hospital-acquired infections. What about medications? Are medications really that safe? In-hospital medications ideally should be the most safe. Did you know that even in the hospital, we have over 200,000 deaths per year due to medication errors and medication toxicity? 200,000 deaths per year. Add up all of the minutiae in terms of hospitalization-based death, and you have a greater danger even than stroke. In fact, how many of you know someone who has died from a stroke? For every one person that you know that's died from a stroke, there are 2 more that have died from a hospitalization, from a hospital stay. The number is astounding. Let's take another look at pharmaceuticals. You see, in the current system, pharmaceuticals are the treatment of choice. In fact, in the whole allopathic paradigm, pharmaceuticals are really the only way that's seen as a qualified treatment for those ill that are suffering from chronic disease and so on. Now, are medications really safe? Well, we know that there are side effects to about every medication that you can take. But did you know that many of these are deadly? In fact, if you were to take all of the data that has been compiled in research and you compiled it all together, you looked at in-hospital medication error-related death, you looked at drug toxicity-related death, you looked at outpatient drug-related deaths, and these are all legal drug-related. These are not, we're not talking about illegal drugs. If you added all of these together, on a very conservative level even, you would have something like 500,000 deaths per year related to total legal drug deaths. 500,000 deaths per year. Now, this is a conservative estimate. There are some who've said we may even have close to 1 million deaths per year. related to drugs, related to legal drug use, prescription medication, over-the-counter pharmaceuticals. When we look at this total amount of drug-related deaths, anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million deaths per year related to drug use, and this is legal drug use, we find something very startling. Tobacco accounts for over 500,000 deaths per year. When we compare this with legal drug usage, we find something very interesting, and that is that total legal drug use surpasses tobacco in terms of its death toll. Now, we all know that tobacco is dangerous, but how many of you knew that drugs were taking this many Americans' lives each year? And it's not only in America, it's all over the world, because allopathy has dominated medical practice throughout the globe. If you look at the way our economy is going, it's set up right now that healthcare is just growing and growing and growing. And experts actually predict that if it keeps growing at this rate, we will not be able to compete with foreign markets. Our economy will be totally destroyed by this system that is destroying people's lives. In terms of treatment, is there a better way? Is there another option? I would submit to you that there is. There are many alternatives to pharmaceuticals. In fact, in the early 1900s, many of these alternatives were practiced. However, now, allopathy stands alone in its preeminence and also in its dominance in using and forcing others to use this treatment paradigm, and that is prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, under-the-counter drugs, you name it. It all has to do with drugs. But what it really comes down to is that we are still looking for a profit, a way of profiting due to treatment. Now, many people could just go outside and get some sunlight and decrease the risk for cancer. In fact, experts recommend moderate sunlight exposure, and they actually estimate that over 100,000 cancer deaths per year could be prevented if adequate sunlight exposure took place. Now, this is a very benevolent thought, but unfortunately, many people are actually put on other prescriptions for preventative measures. And the allopathic mindset is very much a drug-dependent mindset. Are we truly focused on bringing our patients into a state of wellness? Well, I won't leave that up to conjecture. In fact, a recent Gallup poll actually looked at patients who had recently seen a physician, and they actually came apart from their physician. 50% of them had not received any counsel whatsoever about fitness and or wellness. That's 50%. That's not even asking someone, do you get a chance to walk every now and then? That's not even asking someone, would you consider losing a little bit of weight? It's not even asking someone, are you having any medication side effects? You see, when it really comes down to it, our physicians, our little army of physicians here in the United States today, is so overwhelmed with generating and keeping the gears turning on this huge conglomerate, this huge healthcare system, this profit-based system, that they have less and less time that they can even get these words out. It's not just their fault, it's the system. There are many excellent physicians out there today, many physicians I truly respect and love and I enjoy working with, but the vast majority is uneducated in terms of wellness, in terms of fitness, in terms of prevention. It's time to wake up.
Well, if you're anything like me, after hearing this type of factual information, you may be saying to yourself, where do I go from here? And that's why I want to share with you New Start. What New Start is 8 principles, 8 laws of health that were given to us by God. And these 8 laws of health, they are not only effective in aiding us to maintain good health, but they are just as effective in aiding us to combat disease or any healthcare issues that we may be faced with. So get a pen and paper, because here they are. Law number 1 is nutrition. The vegetarian diet is the best way to lose weight and to keep it off. It improves health, decreases disease, promotes longer life, and it is more economical. Eating generous amounts of whole plant-based foods is good for us. Law number 2 is exercise. Now, this is very important for physical and mental health as well. Exercise lowers the heart rate and the blood pressure. It controls appetite. It burns up unwanted fats, and it increases the blood circulation and the oxygen intake. And of course, it improves muscle tone. We need at least 45 to 60 minutes of daily aerobic exercise. Law number 3 is water. Your blood is about 90% water, and it carries nutrients to and from the cells. The kidneys are dependent upon having adequate water so they can filter out waste products. Many times, common constipation, headaches, and even backaches can be relieved simply by drinking sufficient water. We need at least 8 to 10 8-ounce glasses of water per day. Law number 4 is sunshine. One of the most healing agents of nature is the sun. Sunshine forms vitamin D in the skin. It destroys bacteria and viruses. It increases available white blood cells, lowers blood pressure, and lowers cholesterol and fat levels in the blood. Getting regular exposure to early morning or late afternoon sunlight while avoiding overexposure to intense sunlight and burning is great for our overall health. Law number 5 is temperance. Temperance is avoiding that which is harmful to our mental, physical, and spiritual health, and using in moderation those things which are good for us. This includes the proper ratio of work and relaxation, time for God, right eating, and right thinking. Law number 6 is air. We are generally benefited by negative ions which occur in fresh outdoor air. Breathe deeply of fresh air to increase quantities of oxygen. Enjoying regular outdoor recreation and breathing mostly from the diaphragm will improve the oxygenation of the blood. Law number 7 is rest. Every cell in the body expends energy. Rest helps us resupply these cells with the energy they need. Therefore, sleeping at regular times and balancing hard work with time for relaxation is necessary. And most importantly, law number 8 is trust in God. God has given us the power of self-government, which is the freedom and ability to make decisions. We are unable to change our hearts, but we can choose to trust and obey God, and He promises to work in us to give us the desire and power to live in harmony with Him. By choosing to trust and obey God, a total change will be made in our lives. It is only by the strength of God that we can live victorious lives. Well, I hope that you took notes, and even more importantly, I hope that you've already planned to practice each one of these 8 laws of health in your own personal life, because they're practical, they're economical, and above all else, they're divinely appointed. The Bible tells us in 3 John and verse 2, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." And so my prayer for you is that as you yield your heart to being governed by our Lord Jesus Christ, day by day, moment by moment, so that you can receive power to obey all of His moral laws, I pray that as well you will utilize that very same power to be disciplined, to be serious about practicing all of His 8 laws of health, because God desires you to have good health, and He wants you to experience life, and life more abundantly. If you have any more questions about these 8 laws of health, please don't hesitate to contact us. And as always, this is the Forerunner, and whether you like it or not, the truth is the truth.